Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one.
Yeah. Man.
I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome to episode 555 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Keon Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still on assignment, so I have none other than A.D. Drew, along with David L. Rose, better known as Dave, and Charles Bishop, as I said. We're filming from our home studios and sitting alive to KCOH 1230 AM studios in Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, who we saw at the press conference room he normally does in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Charles is smiling today. Some people are still on the ledge. Others are not. Dave may be one of those. As I teased him, I told you we're shooting from our home. He told us if this was his backyard, he wouldn't even be doing the show. A.D. Drew is having a good time as he continues to do the work and make sure that we can get it done and get it on the show. In terms of the intro, I wanted to kick things off, and we'll play that maybe a little later. But with that being said, just so you get an idea of what was to be out there, I had to kick 2 weeks ago. As we kick things off this morning, you had Clark Atlanta stuns everybody in the HBCU community 2 weeks ago with the FCS kick, if you would, in terms of send thunder last week. Well, this week I had to do the cheat code, Charles, and I had Kobe Cavil with the big run that was faced off of everybody, and I'm getting my updates and bleeps and all those kind of things. As folks said, catch this man if you can. Continue to do his thoughts, and then I was going to end it with the fifth overtime 2-point conversion finally made by Prairie View to get their first conference win of the season and literally get them off of death row, it seems like, since we're using some hip-hop terminology here. I'm sure Dave would appreciate that just a little bit in terms of what he's able to do. Folks don't realize, but certainly those that follow him know what I'm referencing. Big time weekend. Games do not let you down. If you're not following the HBCU sports culture, that's on you. With that being said, Charles, how you doing this morning?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. It is officially Red Cup season as we kick off the month of homecomings and whatnot. But I tell you what, we were close. We were close to at least one program for sure looking toward basketball season, but it staves it all. You know, now we set for October, and the buzzword for the night, I heard it from about 3 or 4 different coaches: consistency. So that's what we're looking for in October. See some consistent play from week in, week out.
I'm not sure you're gonna get a lot of that this season, other than maybe
right.
for North Carolina Central. Eagles, it seems like they understand what it means to be in consistency. And boy, I'll say this with the Red Cup: Mike is such a bad influence. He is truly Dave, as a Phi Beta Sigma, certainly understands big brother tendencies and how they can lean you in one direction or the other, oftentimes good, sometimes tantalizing. I'll leave it at that. And we're not even going to get into the board of corporal repair, not punishment, but get right. 80 Drew, how you doing today? Driving the mothership.
I want to bring in a comment from my brother Brian Fulford from the BCSN Sports Rap. Dave, he wants to know, are you outside because you're on the ledge?
I'm out of. I got on the ledge last week. I haven't jumped yet, but you know, it's rough sledding, man.
Say he's looking down there though. Like,
I'm looking dead at it. I'm staring at it at this rate.
Looking at the canyon. But no, Dr.
Yeah,
man. I'm doing fine. I'm questioning the overtime play calling in the PV Grambling game, aka the State Fair Classic, because they obviously ran out of 2-point plays to run, it seemed like, because those plays were like, what? That's the best you got? But anyway, I do have one question for you, Dr. Cavil. When are we going? And I know you have an inside track to this. When are we going to get our official Kobe Cavil interview, Dr. Cavil?
Yeah, that's a nice one. It's coming.
Okay.
And I had promised him once he got in the end zone, but the way that game ended, it just didn't seem right to do it at that point. We needed that catch and touchdown be the one that sealed the deal. And as sports will have you think about life differently, we understand that was not the final play. That was the difference in the game. As Southern came storming back, into their credit, they won in overtime. And so we'll see if we can get that before the end of the season with a couple of more plays by Kobe. But great point. You're right. I do have the inside track. We've been working on it. And to your point, it's been intriguing as a couple of the D2 games, particularly out of the SIAC, shift to today. So I'm sure that you, as you do your D2 and give us that platform, we'll talk a little bit about the CIAA that had the 2 major poll ranking games of the week. We'll let you know how that went. It looks like the Virginians woke up off the mat and said, we're not done yet. With that being said, Dave, besides the fact that the ledge appears differently than your backyard, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, guys. Appreciate the invite. You know, I watched a decent chunk of games yesterday. Delaware State impressed me a lot, even though they couldn't close out the deal yesterday. Yeah, they impressed me a lot. I got to watch a lot of that game prior to A&T's drubbing, so to speak. But overall, I think we're in a good place. We're in a good place with Delaware State. I think Delaware State might be more of a threat to the MEAC than folks aren't discussing right now.
I like that. I like that call when you talk about also if football was only played in a half, it might be a whole different story today.
Delaware State be
That's not
undefeated.
just A&T. That's with other games in Grambling as well. Go ahead, AD.
I say Delaware State would be undefeated if you only had to play the halftime.
And the thing,
or they would at least be out here be looking like Clark Atlanta with a tie.
Well, the thing about Delaware State, man, if I watched the end of that game, and the big thing for me, and I said, Campbell let him score at the end. Give him enough time to score. They could have milked the clock, got the field goal, and walked off and ran with the game.
Yep. Yeah, those are things that you continue to look at. But you're right. When you get in MEAC play, usually you can kind of check off. Delaware State is a win. I'm not sure if they're going to be checking off that much this year. You better be ready to get your hats. And it's like Valley. It's always a tough place to play. Not enough for Alcorn yesterday. Is they kind of got off sluggish, but they got it going, so they got to win. But let's get in these top 7 update scores from the mid-major. We'll take a first break and we'll come back and we'll do our reveal of week number 5. But in week number 4, when you start out with those receiving votes, starting at Texas College, they jumped out to 2 victories in a row. They had a tough conference loss the week before last. Well, they were against Langston, HBCU matchup, and Langston hadn't had a win. So I was fascinating to see what Texas College could do. Well, Langston does what they seem to always do to Texas College Steers, which is beat them. So Texas College Steers lost to Langston 35-25. Virginia Union Panthers bounced back as they improved to 2-2 as Texas College Steers fall to 2-2. They defeated Shaw Bears and dominated 42-7. This is the Virginia Union Panthers that we all thought we knew. Not only did Virginia Union get off the mat, so did Virginia State after both of them lost last week. Virginia State Trojans improved to 2-2 as well, and now they're 1-0 in the conference because they defeated Fayetteville State Broncos 35-18, which is the final. Everybody's like, hold on, they lost last week. Yes, they lost last week, but it did not count for them as a loss in the standing. Yeah, wait until you get that information and you digest it. With that being said, number 7, Florida Memorial Lions, they lost. So they fall to 1-2-1 as they were ranked 7. At number 6, West Virginia State, the Yellow Jacks are quietly winning. Conference win over Western Virginia Wesleyan, 48-22, dominated them as they improved to 3-1, 2-0 on the season. At number 5, Fayetteville State Broncos, as I told you, they lost to Virginia State Trojans, 35-18. At number 4, the Shaw Bears lost to Virginia Union Panthers, 42-7. Both of them, well, Shaw Bears fall to 3-2, 1-1 on the season. And Fayetteville, they fall also to 2-2, 1-1 on the season. At number 3, Winston-Salem State defeated Bowie State Bulldogs 28-14. This game was on HBCU Go, so I had a chance to watch it. Wow, Winston-Salem State pretty much dominated the game. It was actually close. They pulled away late in the second half to kind of give themselves a little more comfort room as they improved to 4-1, 2-0 in the CIAA. It looks like Winston-Salem State is for real and will be in the mix for a while, much like number 2, Clark Atlanta Panthers. They fell behind early, but they come from behind, defeat Lane Dragons, and pull away late. 38-28 was the final. This is one of those watch-out games that Charles told us to watch out, and for a half, it certainly was one to keep your eyes on. But the Panthers are continuing with their magical season. I don't know if it's magical anymore. At this point, there's something to be reckoned with. 4-0-1, 3-0 in conference play, and they seem like they will be in the race the rest of the way. And number 1, Johnson C. Smith, another one of those surprise teams. But I guess at this point, it shouldn't be a surprise anymore if you've been listening to us. They defeat Bluefield State Big Blue, and they do what you do to a team that you should be better. They dominate them 42-3 as they get it done there. Let's get into the major division and tell you what happens here. The major division continues to be shape-shifting, except for maybe the 2 at the top. But it's everywhere there, even though number 1 at the top. But we'll see. With that being said, starting with those receiving votes, Southern Jaguars, they stay at 2-2, 1-0 in the conference play as they did not play. Tennessee State Tigers get a late touchdown to get it done. This time they get the win against Charleston Southern, unlike last week. where they were trying to make a winning drive. So those corrective actions have been made. Texas Southern is off. Tennessee State is off the mat. Unlike Texas Southern, they defeat Charleston Southern Buccaneers 13-9 in that final. With that being said, South Carolina State continues to do what they need to do. This is what Dave was alluding to as the State Bulldogs improved to 2-2, defeated North Carolina A&T State Aggies, pulling away late, really dominating the second half, 45-25. At number 7, Howard Bison, they lost to Princeton Tigers. What is new in terms of non-conference play, particularly against the Ivy School for Howard? Nothing. 30-13 was the loss there. They fall to 2-3. At number 6, Jackson State Tigers defeated Texas Southern Tigers 43-14. Close for a half because of the defense of the Tigers, but Jackson State got it going and just wore out literally the Tigers, as Tigers could not really get anything going. They scored late in that game to make it get off the mat, at least get on the board. But the Tigers of Jackson State get it done. They improved to 3-2, win their first conference game, and they're on and marching. And number 5, Morgan State Bears lost. Stony Brook Seawolves 22-3. Final there. Can't find the offense again. Morgan State, one week they have a little offense, another week it disappears. So a little consistency would be good for the Bears, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. With that being said, they fall to 2-3. We'll see what that looks like. And number 4, we got a little early surprise. Conference play in the MEAC. In the Circuit City Classic, North Carolina Central got the message that it was a conference game. Norfolk State, the Spartans did not. As Central dominated that matchup 37-10, and Central improves to 2-2, 1-0 in the conference place. They are looking good. At number 3, Florida A&M Rattlers had to reschedule a game against Alabama A&M, so they remain at 2-2. At number 2, Grambling State Tigers lost to Prairie View Panthers. This is the game we were alluding to, 36-34. AD said Grambling run out of 2-point plays. Prairie View A&M Panthers, they were happy of that because they finally got one to work, and they win 36-34. And 5 overtimes, they get the trophy game as they win in the State Fair Classic in front of everybody that was at the fair by the time the game ended, because it was 5 overtimes, and that's just a lot of football to watch. Unless you have to be there as the SID or one of those media folks that was like, man, can somebody please get a 2-point conversion? Turkey legs for sale, turkey legs for sale.
I'm ready to go home.
By the time they got over there, the turkey legs were sold out. Number 1.
Turkey legs turned into chicken.
Hey, Williams Chicken, if you from Dallas, lost to William and Mary's talking about Williams Chicken, 49-7. Hampton scored the first touchdown. I was like, okay, they ready. And then they forgot that they are allowed to score again in the rest of the game. 3-2, 0-1 in conference play. Everybody was excited, and most people said that. Hampton, enjoy your number 1 ranking for 1 week, and then we'll talk with you next season. With that being said, we still do have A&T on the schedule. Throw one more jab at that. It's the homecoming too. So with that being said, let's go to our first break and come back on the other side as we reveal the top 7, starting with the 3 outside receiving votes in the next segment. We'll be right back after this first break.
Hey, grab me one too.
This is Ryan Fulford. A.B. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spreaker,
or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be.
You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel.
Yes!
That's how you waffle.
Mister, this script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer.
Go for key.
Even the ultimate pool float inflator.
With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you.
Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true.
Gotta get the corners.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have Kyle T. Mosley joining us to give his analysis as we drop down the top 7 in the poll rankings in week number 5. Again, we'll start with those teams dropping out of the poll this week in regards to that. And you'll see a refrain that you either have to have a winning record or at least a non-losing record to seem to be involved in this top 7. We'll see what that means as things continue, but let's get into the top 7. Dropping out this week was Howard Bison. They fall to 2 and 3. The Morgan State Bears, they also fall to 2 and 3. Receiving votes was Southern Jaguars. They are 2 and 2, 1 and 0 in the conference race. They did not play this weekend, but they stay in the mix. Also receiving votes was Alabama State Hornets, 2 and 2. They got a win over Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman made a big rally, but it wasn't enough to get it done as they fall at home. Alabama State get the big road win with 134 points. Alabama A&M, the Bulldogs, and did not have to play, so they stay at 2 and 2 and are able to get some votes just outside of the top 10. Looking at the top 7, South Carolina State Bulldogs with their win over A&T. They jumped back in the poll this week. They're 2 and 2 with 160 points. At number 6, Grambling State Tigers. They fall 4 spots. They're still in the top 7. They're 3 and 2, 0 and 1 overall, 167 points. At number 5, you have the Tennessee State Tigers, are 3 and 2, 1 and 1, 175 points. They were not ranked, but they jumped back in the poll as they win their second OVC game and are 500 in the OVC, getting a much needed road win. Home win. Not many fans saw it though under 2000 as they continue to struggle in terms of their fan base. At number 4, Jackson State Tigers. They are 3 and 2, 1 and 0. They got a big win in Houston. Everybody likes to come to Houston. Sometimes it seems like it's the get right place. The Tigers to change that, man. Get these folks out of Houston. I don't know what it is. We are a little too comfortable for these folks. With that being said, Jackson State 186 points. They move up 2 spots after the win. Rebounding from last week's defeat at Grambling on the road. At number 3, Hampton Pirates fall from the number 1 ranking that lasted all of 1 week. They are 3 and 2, 0 and 1, but they still in the top 3 teams. They still have 1 first place vote. Somebody believes in them, as you see going through the dropping out polls. You see the poll here. As we get into number 2, as the countdown continues, looking at these releases here. Thank you, Drew, for getting the pictorial for everybody. Looking at number 2, FAMU did not play this week, but they still move in the poll rankings because of what happened to teams above them. They moved the 3 to number 2, 3 first place votes, remaining with those 3 first place votes from last week, 218 points. At number 1, I'm not sure if this is a surprise to anyone. The Eagles actually regained the number 1 spot, 3 and 2 after a big conference win in the Circle City Classic over Norfolk State. dominated, particularly for the first half, let off the gas just a little bit and still rolled in that victory. Walker is showing that he is the truth. They gained first place votes as well as they move up, and now they have 222 points. They move 3 spots up in the number 1 ranking. Again, this is your top 7. Let's go through everybody here around the horn, if you would. We're going to start with Kyle T. Mosley, since you just joined us, and give us your thoughts.
Well, first of all, thank you. Good morning, guys. Well, we know Trey the Truth Oliver is really taking control of the MEAC right now at number 1. FAMU not having a chance to be able to play A&M. I still have to give those guys 1A, 1B, in my opinion. I am surprised about Hampton being number 3 and receiving the first place vote. I don't know if that was Coach doing that, giving himself a vote there. But when you look at what Hampton has done, they've been a very good team. Still, I still think there's a lot of questions there, and I would have put more Jackson State at number 3 versus Hampton. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not too sure Tennessee State should be at that level right now. If anybody, I would give either South Carolina State or Grambling that number 4 ranking. I think Jackson State should be number 3. So those are just my immediate thoughts right now.
I like that. How far do you drop Hampton?
They'll be number 7.
They just get by.
That's tough. Number 7.
Exactly.
That's tough.
Wow. Dave, what are your
be
thoughts?
tough on the Pirates, but
that's tough.
I think they're not. I'm still not convinced.
I like it. It's your truth.
That's
Tell it.
tough. It is his truth.
The top 7.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like those guys in number 1, they absolutely deserve to be number 1.
What do you say the name, Charles?
No, not saying the name. Those guys. School down the road.
I love it.
The boys in Durham, but they deserve to have the top spot. They deserve to have the top spot. There's no question. Walker Harris is legit. There's no doubt about that. They're pretty good defensively as well. Still wondering what the heck happened against Elon at home, but they got some more out of conference games to go. But I'm not mad at those guys being number 1. FAMU, the art of the buy, right? The art of the buy, and the demise of others, which brings me to Hampton. But I'm not mad at Hampton at 3. But they're going to have a tough road ahead. They got to play a couple more top 25 opponents on the CAA schedule. The only gripe I have is I probably wouldn't put Tennessee State as high as 5. I probably would have them 7. But outside of that, I'm not mad at the rankings.
Hey man, we both of y'all can't have Hampton and Tennessee State at 7, but I like it.
Boy, y'all get them out of them fast.
He had Hampton at. I thought he had Hampton down there at 7.
Play some good football.
I did. Yeah, Hampton at 7 for me. All right.
Let me go to you, AD Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of the poll ranking? These guys do not play with the independents. Are you gonna give them any love?
Of course not. That would be too much like right. But do they really deserve any love right now?
Hey, there you go, AD.
Don't do that. Now, come on, guys. Come on, AD.
There you go, AD.
Well, you don't let me start with your school, Dave. I mean,
it's been a while.
Y'all haven't showed up in about 3-4 weeks. Y'all haven't showed up.
No, we haven't. Look, we've given up 500 yards of offense at every game against a Division 1 opponent this season. You ain't got to tell me.
And how many did you give up against that Division 2 opponent? Oh, don't answer that right now.
I don't think it was 500, but it was a lot.
but here's my point. You remember the Tupac song, All Around the World? This is the same song. Where have we seen this at before?
Yeah.
North Carolina Central, FAMU, 1 and 2. We've seen that. Hampton starts out early. They get to the number 1 spot, and then they just slide on down the pole. By homecoming season, we'd have forgot all about the Pirates.
Charles, Red Cup.
Red Cup.
Then you got
we should make it a blue cup for Hampton, blue and gray.
Then we got a Jackson State team who hangs around. Sit there at the number 2 spot as far as the SWAC teams go. And then same thing with Tennessee State. They start off at the top, don't quite get to number 1, but they get into that top 3, and then they slide on down. So that's SOS, same old stuff that we have seen the last 2-3 years. What's new this year is Grambling is back into the football business. Although somewhere in the SWAC office, somebody messed up the memo because the SWAC official record has Grambling listed at 0-2 in conference, but Grambling's website has them as 0-1. And we found out last week that game did not count. So somebody needs to send a communication so we can get this stuff straightened out. And the resurgence of South Carolina State under Chennis Berry. Chennis Berry does what Chennis Berry does. So, it's going to be interesting. The only thing I'm going to say about this MEAC record, who will Delaware State play spoiler to? Because that is not one that you can no longer chalk up as a W on your schedule.
I just want to remind folks that school in Durham and South Carolina State, they play in Orangeburg this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Orangeburg is a house of horrors, particularly from North Carolina schools.
Sure right. You're sure right. And that's been the last couple of years we've seen that even when supposedly Central comes in there or A&T with a better team, it hasn't worked out that way to get it done. Now, when you talk about Delaware State, before I go to you, Charles, for your final thoughts on there, let me give you some updates in terms of that schedule for Delaware State when they get into conference play. Delaware State goes to South Carolina State. They go to Howard, but then they host Morgan State. They go to Norfolk, and they host Central, the last game of the season. So it'd be interesting there what that may look like, to your point. With that being said, Charles, top 7, what are your thoughts in terms of week number 5? Any surprises to you?
No real surprises. I am going to slide South Carolina State up. That was impressive yesterday. I'm probably going to slide them up at least to the 6th spot with Grambling kind of, I guess, holding down the bottom there. Tennessee State and Hampton. I'm still going to give you another week to kind of prove it to me. I don't want to kick you out just yet, but it's, I see where things are starting to go once we get to October. Impressive outing again, or Walker Harris having more of a Walker Harris look yesterday. That was impressive. 4 touchdowns, 19 of 25, if I'm not mistaken. So North Carolina Central very deserving of that number 1 ranking. FAMU, I kind of I like what Kyle said, 1A, 1B. But we get to know really next week with FAMU and Alabama State. FAMU on the road in Montgomery. That's going to be a fun one. Jackson State, tremendously impressive performance last night. And if you can get consistent play out of Jacoby and Morgan, they become a real dangerous team. I like the way the defense is really flying around last night. And to me, a healthy Irv Mulligan gives this Jackson State offense a physicality and identity, and everything kind of blossoms off of whether he's healthy or not. So we'll see what this Jackson State team looks like going forward.
Yeah,
certainly.
Can I ask some? Charles, last night, Irv was on the sideline being attended to by the medical. So that's something that we're going to have to look at to see how he handles that. But one thing I can say from last night's game here in Houston, I think the consistency, and we talked about it afterward, how consistent can this Jackson State team be for the rest of the season? If we can see consistency from Mr. Morgan, I think they are dangerous.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the question. What we're starting to see in the SWAC is there are several championship-level defenses, but there are a lot of offenses struggling. Some of that is due to what we came into the season talking about, new quarterback play. Yeah. And worse off in the second line of that is what you're having is the inability for quarterbacks to stay healthy. So a lot of teams are playing with their second quarterback. So whoever can get healthy, 1, 2, get some consistency on the offense beyond being able to run the ball, getting a decent pass game, whether you're in the Eastern Division or the Western Division, is going to go a long way into selling who's going to make it in the SWAC championship game, and ultimately probably who's going to win it. Last thing I will say, that FAMU Jackson State game that moved from Labor Day weekend to late in the season is looming to be a clash of a Titans. I will only throw in one thing, is the Alabama State Hornets, who defensively can play anybody, and they certainly play well against both of those teams. As they've went on the road, got a win against Jackson State over the last couple of years, namely for homecoming, and then obviously playing FAMU tough at home. And guess what? FAMU goes to Alabama State next week to kick things off, so we might get our first indication of what that looks like.
FAMU homecoming too.
Weeks, homecoming. So it'll be fast.
I'm flying down for it next week, later this week.
That's it. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. So things start to get real good, real quick. I promised that I'd get these gentlemen out, Kyle and David, but they did a great job breakdown in terms of what that looks like. You can catch Kyle, Sports Illustrated HBCU, as he continues to give you updates. Check out his videos. We did a nice interview after the game and some of the legends here in Houston. So I appreciate him asking some questions. Check out That's Coming from Kyle D. Mosley. He also does a lot of great work for those NFL folks out there. Check him out in terms of his reports with the New Orleans Saints that are hot right now. They got it bumped a little bit. Or check out Dave as he gives you his updates in terms of Carolina. You see he can stick out his chest just a little bit today as they got a big win last week. So credit to him in terms of the great work that they can do diversifying, not only giving you 8 updates on HBCU sports, but they can do it at the NFL. Charles getting a little smile as his Cowboys got off the mat Thursday against the Giants and got a win. AD Drew, I know you like me. We stick with HBCU sports. We'll follow that NFL stuff some other time because you know I don't watch. But I know what I'm talking about. Don't just get me wrong. With that, we'll take our next break. We'll come back on the other side, talk a little bit more about with Charles and AD, some of these games that they saw yesterday, what stood out to them, and we'll go around the horn, if you would, in regards to that. And then we'll get you looking forward to next week to see who is able to get off the ledge or who may come to the ledge of matchup next week. Stick with me right back after this second break.
Hi, Norfolk State.
Thank you.
At Automasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and AD Drew. That being said, Charles, I'm going to go to you first and get you some of your games. What stood out yesterday in terms of the scores? Obviously, I broke down some scores in the top 7. I thought Virginia Union, the way they dominated Shaw, I know you jumped out there and said you thought Shaw was ready.
Yeah.
Not only did they lose, but Virginia Union kind of stuck their chest back out there and said, I know y'all wanted to bury us, put some dirt on it, but not so fast.
Mm-hmm.
What else out there besides that game that kind of catches your attention?
Well, obviously, the 5 overtime thriller last night in Dallas, when you talk about Prairie View and Grambling, Prairie View being pushed to the brink last night and to be able to fight through, and the playmakers came out to play, and they made some plays. That's got to excite Prairie View's fan base to know that you can get the ball in the Shamar Savage, Cavil, get the ball to the playmakers' hands, and they can make some plays for the offense to show up big when they absolutely had to. That was huge. And I think that was, big for Prairie View last night. The other one that jumps out at me, I did not see North Carolina Central like thrashing Norfolk State the way they did. That was a very impressive win from North Carolina Central. That's a statement win. That's the one that, I say every week there are going to be some games that kind of turn your head. that's one that absolutely turned my head. And of course, we were there last night for Jackson State, getting back off the mat against what was going to be, I thought was going to be a stern test with Texas Southern. This was a Texas Southern team that coming to this game, they had been playing just much better football in terms of just looking at the brand of football, the physicality part. Knowing that they can run the football, I thought Jackson State would be tested pretty well. They answered the test in terms of stopping Texas Southern's running game and then showing some offense last night. And then, like I said, if you see Jacobian Morgan play more consistently in terms of not turning the ball over, all of a sudden Jackson State becomes a team that you kind of keep an eye out for, especially if the quarterback play continues to improve.
Good one. I also say this about Prairie View. Prairie View's defense has kind of been maligned, if not folks really frustrated with how they play, particularly late in games. But I think they get a bit of kudos in terms of this matchup as they were down 17-7 in that first half. They essentially shut out Grambling except for a tough 4th and 18 that allowed Grambling to score the final touchdown and send it to overtime. They essentially shut out Grambling and made a statement in that second half, a second half they had to have. So I wanted to give the defense for Prairie View a little love, the defensive coordinator. I thought that was a significant play in the second half to even put it to that. Again, that 4th and 18 will stick in a lot of people's craw, but the fact they got the victory in totality, I think if you talk about it, great point on Grambling Prairie View State Fair Classic about Prairie View literally getting off the mat in the second half, including overtime to find a way to get it done, to get a pause on those Prairie View folks that were on the ledge and, as you would say, starting to look at basketball season. Well, Norfolk State may be already there. AD Drew, what game stood out to you?
Well, I'm going to start off with the game that I was praying that would end so I could go ahead and go to bed last night.
So you can see it in your poll results?
Because obviously, you know, Dr. Cavil, I forgot to send them in last night because that game went off and I fell asleep, you know, with some adult libation as I was watching that game. So I had to get up this morning and hurry up and send the poll to you.
You probably need it if you're watching that.
I was about to say, you're watching that.
Grambling.
Yeah, but let's talk about the drive that Grambling had to even force the game into overtime.
Wow.
I mean, first of all, to have the one touchdown called back by a holding penalty, I believe that was like a 37 or a 38-yard strike. To have that one called back, and then to come back a couple of plays later and basically Moss, whoever the defensive back was for Prairie View, to get on that 4th down to catch the ball. I believe it was at the 10-yard line where the ball was caught at. I mean, that was a great, tremendous athletic play. And I'm sorry, I don't have the receiver's name in front of me, but that was just a tremendous play by the
part of that is not your fault. We're still looking for the statistics.
Okay.
It was a late night, Doc. It was a late. Grace, give them grace.
Yeah. But that was just a great drive there by Grambling at the end, and for Prairie View not to have that. Oh, here we go again. Mentality, considering that they had just lost to Southern in a similar fashion with a late touchdown to force the game to be tied, and then obviously they lost that game in overtime. So great job by Prairie View with their resilience. But let's go to the CIAA, where it seems like order may possibly be restored.
I like that.
Possibly be restored. I think we have one additional week of crossover with the Old North versus the Old South. So let's see if the Virginia schools get their mojo back. Obviously, what happened to Fayetteville State? You know, Fayetteville State don't have that South to rely on anymore to make their way to the championship game. Johnson C. Smith right now looks like they are the class of the CIAA. Hands down, they are the class of the CIAA. The two Virginia schools did what they needed to do after the non-conference conference game that they played last week. And Can Clark Atlanta, once again, can you get off to a lead? Can you show up before halftime? I need Clark Atlanta to show up before the band. That's all I need y'all to do. Show up before the halftime performance and play some ball so we can see how good you really are.
Maybe it's the bands that fired them up in the second half. You're right. They might need to get the memo that they are allowed to start in the first quarter when the ball is kicked off.
Where the band need to march in when the buses get there. Then the zero quarter, they need to do their halftime performance, and then at halftime they need to do their fifth quarter performance. Something to get Clark Atlanta motivated, because I don't see how you can sustain this and continue to win in a long season by waiting to the back every doggone week.
Good stuff. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, the Southern Heritage Classic probably started off some of those major classes up there. They had 27,584. But Grambling and Prairie View get out the gate big time in terms of this matchup. Not only did they have a classic in terms of 5 overtimes, but the attendance was listed as 52,323 to kind of kick things off for the major classic. So good starting point, really good attendance, and every bit the fans were there to cheer it on, particularly early. To your point, Drew, I really like what you said about the CIAA, potentially the order being restored with Virginia State, Virginia Unions getting solid wins, but you still have at the top of the poll Winston-Salem State and Johnson C. Smith, as you said as well, that are still saying, hey,
October 26th.
We want to have a piece of this. October 26th is a date to watch as we have some key matchups. So I like what you said there. Going back to the Prairie View and Grambling game, to put an emphasis on your point that Prairie View got off the mat, particularly after that late score, giving up a 4th and 18. Things started out in a lot of ways. Lennon Blow's already got his.
And he fired up. He is fired up.
Wow. He got a cadre of coaches that he's putting on the hot seat. With that being said, as I was talking about that game, is after Grambling scored last time, Southern did the same thing. They got the ball first. Grambling didn't score on the first play, but they scored on the second play, rushing up. Prairie View gets the ball, they go in, they get down to the line, and their first 2 plays don't work. So they get the third down, and you like, literally, is it going to be a replay of what you saw last week? They get the touchdown on the third down, and we're able to kind of get things rolling in terms of forcing it and going back and forth and playing some defense. But you're right on it, AD Drew, as you said, to see the bounce back as things were looking bleak in a lot of ways for Prairie View. But Prairie View put on their Western Division Championship hat, if we want to use that card, and push forward. So a lot of good stuff there. Let's take our last break, come back on the other side, and talk about some games to watch next week as we start to get a little deep in this conference play and things start to unveil themselves. We'll see what these 2 gentlemen say about that. Stick with us as we get back after this last break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you sérieux?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft. Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody. Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it.
Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go, why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get into some of the games coming up in week number 6. I'm gonna start at the major division level with the MEAC, and then we'll slide on through and see what these gentlemen think. Then we'll get some thought process on some key CIAA games and SIAC. Let's first start that we have a couple of SIAC matchups that had to move from Saturday to Sunday. We'll keep eyes on that to really close out things in week 5. So we get a little bit of bonus football, if you would, because things were pushed. And we pray and hope everybody is weathering what came through this yesterday in terms of the hurricane over Friday night and Saturday morning. With that being said, St. Francis at Delaware State. Can Delaware State get over that hump and get them their second non-conference FCS win? They played in some really close games. What is intriguing to me, that brings up North Carolina Central and Campbell. Campbell just played Delaware State and got it done. Central is coming off hot. They usually play well against FCS, but obviously they had a tough win earlier at home, but now they're on the road. Can they get things done? Another one is that South Carolina State at Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech played Tennessee State last weekend and got a win. Will this be a statement for South Carolina State if they can go on the road and show it better than Tennessee State did? Norfolk State is Sacred Heart. Remember, Norfolk State got off the mat, got it done against VMI, took it on the chin in Circle City Classic. Can they kind of continue with their up and down season going back and forth, or will this be the slide that kind of puts things in the wrong direction? And then you have another one of these FCS D2 matchups against HBCUs before last week with the kick heard around the HBCU diaspora, if you would, was Clark Atlanta defeating Bethune-Cookman. Morgan State offensively not there, but Lincoln, Pennsylvania struggling on both sides, offense and defense. So I don't see any surprise here, but that is a game to keep your eyes on. Let's go to the SWAC where things really start to kick off. I kind of teased and alluded to this a little bit earlier. We have, if you would, FAMU at Alabama State. I imagine that has some people's interest. Arkansas Pine Bluff or Alcorn State. Can Pine Bluff shock everybody and say they will be a player in the West with this game? They're on the road. We'll see what that looks like. Texas Southern homecoming, much like Alabama State, but they have a little different foe as they have the Virginia Lynchburg that makes their homecoming rounds this year. Alabama A&M and Jackson. That game is actually in Mobile. Can Alabama A&M get off the mat since they were able to postpone FAMU playing in Mobile? Can they make a statement against Jackson State, or will Jackson State start to ride out and create the matchup between Alabama State and FAMU that everybody wants to see? Prairie View is in non-conference play. Incarnate Word, they do have a non-conference win this year against FCS Northwestern State. A little different foe when you talk about Incarnate Word to come in 2-2, and they've had trouble with them. They got to go to San Antonio to be interesting, but you got to believe Prairie View is feeling a little better. So we'll see what that looks like. And then you have Southern hosting Nichols that got a win as they play that matchup, and we'll see what that looks like as they played Mississippi Valley earlier and really pounded Valley and shut them out 66-0. Can Southern do any better than that matchup? Fascinating what you see going on there. As we start to get into our independents, give you some matchups in terms of what that looks like. You have Rhode Island at Hampton, and you have North Carolina at Richmond. I don't see the Richmond even as one to consider twice. Then let's go to our OVC Big South matchup, and you have after Tennessee State got a win. Now they take on Lindenwood. That's the transitioning D2, but they transitioned for the last 2 years. So we'll see if they're in a different position as Lindenwood comes in at 2-3 in terms of that matchup, while Tennessee State is at 3-2. With that being said, starting with you, AD Drew, any thoughts on the FCS level HBCU games that kind of catch your attention?
I'll start off with the SWAC since that's the page that I have up. Obviously, FAMU, Alabama State, and what's besides the fact that this is homecoming, besides the fact that geographically this is their closest SWAC opponent. Yes, Montgomery is geographically closer than Bethune is down at Daytona for those who are into the geography. So. Already gonna have a good crowd because it's homecoming, but FAMU would definitely bring a lot of orange and green to Montgomery, Alabama on this particular day. And with FAMU, basically bye week game, it's going to be interesting to see if FAMU is going to be able to get into any type of rhythm in this game, especially early against Alabama State. Another matchup staying in the state of Alabama, as we're talking about geography, Jackson, Mississippi is closer to Mobile, Alabama than Huntsville, Alabama is to Mobile, Alabama. And we already know how Jackson State likes to travel. So that's going to be another interesting matchup, especially when it comes to the crowd. I'm expecting South Carolina State to go ahead and get this victory against Tennessee Tech, but the game in the MEAC that intrigues me is Central against the Fighting Camels of Campbell University. That one is going to be definitely a good matchup. This will tell us if Central is for real and has bounced back from that 2-game slide that they had earlier. Last one, independent. I definitely expect Tennessee State to be able to handle Lindenwood on Saturday.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Charles, your thoughts?
Let me start off Winston-Salem at Virginia Union. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's going to be a good one. When you take a look at Virginia Union this past week, Jada Byers reintroduced himself to everybody. He's still making everybody remember he's that dude going for 170 yards. So that was going to be a huge game. I'm like AD. You didn't leave any meat on the bone for me today because the first thing I thought about with FAMU coming into Montgomery, Alabama A&M and Jackson State going to Mobile, put those red cups down. Alabama State troopers will be out. There'll be a lot of traffic. Okay, so we got all that going on.
Be careful on 231.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be a traffic nightmare when you take a look at trying to get to those various games or get there early. But obviously, I think the question is, can Alabama State, can they pound a rock against FAMU? They went for over 300 yards this past week. Zach Sims is going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than the 12 attempts. So that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. And we know what FAMU can do from an offensive standpoint and defense as well. So that's going to be a great game to watch. Alabama A&M and Jackson State, I think obviously with that game, Jackson State has become that 400-pound gorilla for Alabama A&M's program. Can they get over the hump? I mean, when you go back to, Scootergate, back at that homecoming game with Alabama A&M, it just hasn't been the same since. So, that's I think that's going to be huge for Alabama A&M. Can they get over the hump that is Jackson State? So those are the games that I'm really paying attention to this week. I'm sure there'll be some head turners along the way, but those three games are the ones I'm really paying attention to.
Good stuff, Charles. Jumped in there and gave some D2 matchups. So I'm gonna go back to you, AD Drew, and talk about some of these D2 matchups, as Charles alluded to some that are on his mind. I'm sure you would agree with a couple of those. Obviously, at Winston-Salem State, Virginia Union Panthers. This is a chance for Winston-Salem State to make a major statement. They got to go on the road to do it. I'm interested in that matchup next Saturday. That is at high noon Central Time. That's 1 Eastern in Hoovie Field. The other one that sticks out to me a little bit is the Virginia State Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you look up, you want to say Golden Bulls are there, they got another chance to make a major statement. As Virginia State, the Trojans travel to Charlotte, North Carolina to visit Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls. And at this point, if they can make this statement, if you don't believe in the Golden Bulls, I don't know what is going to sell it to you in terms of what that looks like. So that kind of sticks out to me. Savannah State at Clark Atlanta University. Can I sell you on any of that?
Yes.
Obviously, Savannah State has a game today in terms of getting it done. It's interesting to see who of those teams will get a chance to kind of step back into stuff. I think that's fascinating with those matchups moving. With Fort Valley State, somebody's going to get to 500 in that matchup. At Edward Waters, Tuskegee, can Tuskegee get off the map in terms of selling down the fans just a little bit? Or will Edward Waters bounce back from the tough loss that they had to kind of right the ship, if you would? I'm fascinated today with that matchup, but then it pushes you back with them continuing to get some other matchups based on what they do today. With Tuskegee facing Morehouse. That legendary Tuskegee Morehouse game and classic there, fascinating to see who can get the win since both teams are struggling. And then based on what happens today for Fort Valley and Edward Waters, they match up next week on a short week schedule based on the games moving today. But all that being said, what direction are you going to on the Division II side of things?
For me, like you already hit on it. I think Charles hit on it. Winston-Salem, Virginia Union, obviously the sexiest matchup of the CIAA. Oh, wait a minute, Johnson C. Smith, Virginia State. So you got a couple of sexy matchups there in the CIAA. And for last one, the CIAA, Bowie State, Fayetteville State. This is going to be a bounce back game for one of these two teams. Winner stays alive. Loser is essentially eliminated from that in the race with the Bowie State Fayetteville State game.
Yeah,
switch it over to the SIAC. It's going to be interesting. I can't tell you the last time I've ever seen two teams come back and play each other when both teams are on the short week, as Edward Waters and Fort Valley will be this particular week. And I really want to keep an eye on that game, besides the fact that Edward Waters will be playing Fort Valley on the short week, the Tuskegee Edward Waters game today, because that's going to set a lot of the narrative for next week in the Morehouse Tuskegee Classic. If Morehouse comes in with more wins than Tuskegee, that's really going to be telling that as the granddaddy of them all, the oldest, longest classic, excluding the COVID year, in the nation, as I believe this is the 88th Tuskegee Morehouse Classic. So those are the ones that I'm looking at. But I've just got this sneaky feeling Savannah State Clark is going to give us something that we're going to be talking about next Sunday. I just have this sneaky feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I like those sneaky feelings, and you're right. It's already getting into the mid part of the season. I'm not sure if we can tell anything other than maybe North Carolina Central. Probably could have said something maybe about FAMU, but not having that game played, I think people still want to see what's going on, and you get a true glimpse quickly next week. So I'm fascinated when you talk about those matchups, things getting done. With that being said, let's get ready to close it. Any final thoughts for you, Charles?
Great game last night. All-time classic. I'm not talking about Alabama, Georgia. I'm talking about Prairie View Grambling. Instant classic when you talk about 5 overtime games. We were riveted to it. We were back there in the press conference with Texas Southern and Jackson State, and still, asking questions, kind of peeking down at the phone. So, it's excellent when you have all that. But got some great matchups coming up this week. Alabama State, Florida A&M. You just don't want to be looking up early in the East because it's going to be tough trying to get yourself back in there. So a lot of fun games coming up, Doc.
Yeah, you're exactly right when you talked about riveting in there. I just got out of the suite, and they gave us our 10-minute call, and Dr. Granger was like, look, man, we put the games in here. We know what we're doing. But even the Texas Southern fans in there were just on the phone like, man, what is going to happen in this matchup? So I get in there just enough time to get to TC Taylor and tell him congratulations as he's walking out. I have Deuce with me, and we go to all these HBCU games, and he's traveling to Alabama A&M for their homecoming next week, a couple of weeks, I should say. So fascinating to see what that looks like. But I'm in there, and Charles over there looking. He say, man, it's fine. I say, I know I'm watching. I refuse to ask questions. I'm trying to listen. I'm in there. As they trying to do double duty, looking up to answer questions. I like, Charles is doing great work. I was like, I'm sitting this out. Y'all can have it. Finally got it done. So intriguing in terms of what we do in the media side of this to try to coverage. Like AD Drew says, we're all over the place to try to make sure you can get your news appropriately, staying up all types of hours in the morning to make sure we can get the show going, getting up early in the morning to do that. But we do it out of labor of love. And I want to thank these gentlemen, obviously Dave and Mosley that got it in there. Shout out to BJ Jones. The internet would not let him be great, obviously, as they're fighting things in Atlanta. So certainly understand how that looks at. But there is a quadrille of group of individuals that support the show on many different levels. And I want to continue to say thank you as we push forward to get you going and closing out your Sunday morning of what took place Saturday from the morning edition. Stick around as we'll close out things and get things going for the rest of the week with the Sunday evening position with Sports Wrap, with Brian getting it done. Jamie Walker sitting in for AD Drew. AD Drew likes to do a little sneak appearance at times, so don't be surprised if he found a way, because there's always a nugget that he needs to make sure that you get in terms of what that looks like. So excited for him. One last time as we unveil the top 7 in week number 5. At number 7, South Carolina State Bulldogs, 2-2 on the season. At number 6, Grambling State Tigers at 3-2. Number 5, Tennessee State Tigers at 3-2. At number 4, Jackson State Tigers at 3-2. At number 3, the Hampton Pirates also at 3-2. Number 2 is FAMU Rattlers at 2-2. A new number 1 in week number 5 as North Carolina Central Eagles regain the number 1 spot in this week number 5 is obviously North Carolina Central Eagles that improved to 3-2 with 7 first place votes. You see it right there. With that being said, let's close it out and let these gentlemen have the rest of the Sunday as they are extremely busy getting things done. I am Dr. Kiana Cavil in the lab. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, I want to thank you for listening to Dr. Mills Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock, Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. With that being said, all is right with the world, Charles, as the Prairie View Panthers stake their claim and get the State Fair Classic trophy back and stay just a little bit in the race in the Western Division. We'll see how long that lasts. With that being said, follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I call it Twitter because I can. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
80.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Travel light, everybody.
For you NFL fans,